Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to lesson 37. In this lesson, we're going to take a look at three words in Arabic: an, asa, and la'alla. What do these words mean, and what are the grammatical rules surrounding their usage in the Quran? Let's start with the word an. The word an usually means that, and we've already seen this in lesson 18. We've talked about this. So in this lesson, we're actually going to take a look at other meanings of the word an. Okay? So what are those other meanings? So the first is to introduce direct speech. Okay, what does direct speech mean? So let's take a look at an example in English. Let's say I have a sentence like, I said to my friend, go have lunch. The phrase go have lunch is the actual spoken part of this sentence, right? And so in English, I would put quotation marks around go have lunch. I said to my friend, quotation mark, go have lunch, and quotation mark. Now in Arabic, the Arabic of the Quran, of course, we don't have quotation marks. And so instead you need to have something else to indicate that there's speech that's about to happen. And so for that, in Arabic, we use the word an. So let's take a look at an example here. أوحينا إلى موسى أن ألقي عصاك. We inspired Moses, or we revealed to Moses, throw your staff. Okay? ألقي عصاك is the actual spoken part. That's the speech, right? And so we have to put the word an before that. Okay? So we revealed to Moses saying, or sometimes this is just not even translated, throw your staff. Okay? Now it's also worth mentioning that I actually don't need to put the word an if the verb for the speaking is qala. So if it's something like qala Allah, God said, you can just put the spoken part right after that without using the word an. But for other verbs that involve speech, you need to put an. أوحينا إلى موسى أن ألقي عصاك, for clarity. Alright, another meaning of an, which is less common, is to mean because. So أحسب الناس أن يتركوا أن يقولوا آمنا. Let's take a look at this ayah as an example. This ayah actually has two times that the word an is used. Okay, and these two usages are actually different usages of the word an. Okay, so let's take a look. أحسب الناس, do people think, أن يتركوا, that they will be left alone. So this first an is the common meaning of an, that. أن يقولوا آمنا, because they say we believe. Alright, so now this second usage of the word an is to mean because. Alright, a third usage is, this is interesting, it can also mean that not. So kind of the opposite of the original meaning in some sense. Or a more formal way to translate this might be the word lest. Okay, and let's take a look at an example because this one's a little bit, it's less common and it can be a little bit harder to translate. لا تأكلوها إسرافا وبدارا أن يكبروا. Do not devour it, squandering and in haste, lest they grow up. So I think this is referring to the wealth of the orphans. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do not devour it, squandering and in haste, that they do, like, so that they don't have it when they grow up. So that not. So in this case, this is referring to that not. Or a more kind of elaborate translation might be, do not consume it, squandering and in haste, in fear that they will have it when they grow up. So you can see that this an is actually a more complex translation, requires a more complex translation in order to fully understand how it's used in this sentence. So okay, so the an, to recap, it usually means that, but it can also have other meanings to introduce direct speech, meaning because, or meaning that not. Alright, let's change gears a little bit and now talk about the word asa. The word asa is much more straightforward. It just means perhaps, or maybe so. And it usually has this form here, asa followed by the subject of the sentence, followed by an. So for example, here we have asa Allahu an ya'fuwa anhum. Perhaps God may forgive them. Okay. So now you can see here, an, this is even another usage of the word an, but this is just this entire construction. So if you see asa followed by something followed by an, it just means maybe the subject might do this. So asa Allahu an ya'fuwa anhum. It may be, or perhaps God will forgive them. All right, moving on to the word la'alla. So the word la'alla can also mean perhaps. Okay, so just like asa, it can also mean perhaps, but it also has a different meaning in Arabic, which is so that. Okay, and it's interesting because usually when la'alla happens towards the beginning of an ayah or the beginning of a sentence, it means perhaps. لعل الساعة تكون قريبة. Perhaps the hour is something near. But if it happens towards the end of a sentence, it usually means so that. فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. Avoid it so that you may prosper. So here it doesn't mean perhaps you might prosper. It actually means avoid it so that you may prosper. Right? So this is the two usages of la'alla. And that is it for today's lesson. So let's just take a look at a few exercises to apply this. عسى ألا so the first verse is عسى ألا أكون بدعاء ربي شقيا. So this is actually part of a larger verse, but let's try to translate this part of the verse. عسى, perhaps, or it may be. أن لا. So here what's actually happening is we're negating the typical meaning of عسى. So it usually means عسى usually means it may be. But if you say عسى أن لا, it essentially means so it would not be, or it might. I know it will not be. أن أكون بدعاء ربي شقيا, that my dua, my supplication, that the supplication to my Lord is unanswered. So, okay, it may not be the case that my supplication to my Lord is unanswered. All right, let's take a look at the second one. إنا جعلناه قرآنا عربيا لعلكم تعقلون. Indeed, we have made it a Quran in Arabic so that you may apply your intellect. Okay, so here la'alla is appearing towards the end of a sentence. We know that that means so that. عبس وتولى أن جاءه الأعمى. He frowned and turned away because a blind man came to him. Okay, so this here, an in this usage, an means because. أوحينا إلى موسى أن اضرب بعصاك البحر. We revealed to Moses, direct speech, strike with your staff the sea. Strike the sea with your staff. Okay? So go back, make sure you understand all the uses of an as well as la'alla and asa. And that is it for today's lesson. Jazakallahu khair. Thank you so much everyone for listening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.